Here's basketball.
Curry sidestep, Curry drive, Curry flip, Curry good!
This is Dubs OT with John Dickinson on KNBR 104.5 and 6.8. Streaming live at twitch.tv/thesportsleader.
The 28th clutch game, plus or minus 5 inside 5 minutes. The most in the NBA. This is perfect. This is why you love Kuminga in the game at this time. Give it to him in the post. And he lost the handle. Didn't get the foul, didn't get the field goal. Jake Cunningham spinning and flipping it in. So that 11-point lead is down to 1, and the Warriors need to use another timeout. 4:20 remaining. Pistons have one road win all season. Get it into Sharks, and that will do it. So the only way to back up and get over last night was to get a win. You know what? Denver went and lost to Orlando at home tonight. The Nuggets and Warriors both went 1-1 in these 2 days. Basically. They win on the back end of a back-to-back. 113-109.
I suppose. One way to look at it. Warriors do get the win, 113-109. We welcome you in. It's Dubs OT with JD here on KNBR, the sports leader. 808 KNBR is the number. Look, I'm not typically in the business of rating victories, and the Warriors certainly needed to bounce back, and this was the quintessential zero upside game, as we discussed last night. And for those of you here on the sports leader that get to know me on this Dubs OT show, that's a term that I'll bring up a lot. It's basically a game that a team has to win, but for the most part, unless you're uber impressive in how you win it, there's no upside to it. Like there was only downside for the Warriors in this game tonight. There were only things that could go wrong in this game for the Warriors tonight. They could lose it, which would be catastrophic on top of what happened last night and then everything that happened as far as the firestorm between presumably Jonathan Kuminga's agent hooking up with The Athletic and putting some news out there about JK being unhappy with his role, and Moses Moody speaking to reporters about his role and all of that. So, yeah, it could have gotten worse. There could have been a new rock bottom for the Warriors had they dropped this game. But the flip side to that is if you win the game, as the Warriors did, unless it's ultra impressive, you don't really get a whole hell of a lot of credit for it. Now, that being said, we will discuss it here for the next 90 minutes or so on The Sports Leader as the Warriors find themselves inching back closer to the 500 mark, which is paramount. They had to get a win tonight, whether it was ugly or pretty, and it most certainly was an ugly basketball game. And so now it's on to an off day for the Warriors and on to the next against Toronto on Sunday at Chase Center. I thought tonight you got to start with Steph Curry. One of those refusing to let the Warriors lose after things got dicey there with 4:20 to go. Looked like the Warriors were going to avoid the clutch game. Looked like the Warriors were going to comfortably maybe win by double digits, even though the Pistons were able to hang around for basically the entirety of the game. And then Steph comes back in the game, and immediately upon Steph coming back into the game with the Warriors up 11, it gets cut right back down to 1. But the Warriors do figure out a way to finish it. Podziemski had a big bucket, and then it was basically all Steph Curry. Curry hits a 3. Klay got a couple of free throws. Bogdanovich hit a 3 that briefly put Detroit ahead. But then it was Steph from there after the Pistons had their first lead since it was 33-32 early, going back to quarter number 2. But Curry gets to the free throw line, hits a 3, hits another 3, gets back to the free throw line, and basically puts the game away. Steve Kerr gave Warrior fans what they wanted tonight. A lot of Jonathan Kuminga. We don't have to talk, although we are going to talk about Jonathan Kuminga. You can bet your behind we're going to talk about Jonathan Kuminga tonight. Kuminga, really good first half. Not as good in the second half, but good things happened when he was on the floor. He was a game-high plus 16. And even though You look up in the first half, and he scored all 11 of his points on 4 of 6 shooting in the first half. Him being on the floor tonight mattered, and him being on the floor at the end of the game mattered. And look, Steve Kerr didn't really have a whole hell of a lot of options after everything that went down last night. It just makes sense to play Jonathan Kuminga against teams like Detroit, for sure. Like, we can have a conversation about whether he should be playing on a night-in, night-out basis against contenders or defending champions. Now, last night, he should have, and we talked about that. But that's not necessarily an every-night proposition. Tonight, though, against the Pistons, a team of, like experience to Kuminga, as far as, just a lot of young athletic players that are running around trying to find themselves on the basketball court and establish themselves in their NBA careers. Tonight's a game a lot like Portland, that Kuminga can just get out there and do his thing and make some mistakes and make an impact and help. So good on Steve Kerr for not, and I can't even believe this was a conversation, but I guess apparently it was a conversation. Like, there were people that thought, because of the Shams Anthony Slater report, that maybe the Warriors wouldn't play him tonight because his agent basically leaked that he was unhappy to The Athletic. There wasn't a thought that even crossed my mind for a tenth of a second that Kuminga wouldn't play. I know he popped up on the injury report this morning with a toe, but was listed as probable, which typically means a guy's going to play. So, I think cooler heads prevail, although the Warriors and Kuminga still continue to do this dance where he's unhappy. They're trying to get him on the floor in ways that work for them. I think he made a positive impact on the game tonight, and everybody can just kind of move forward. So I think all in all, it was an ugly-ass win. It was really probably the worst game of the season, just aesthetically. It was just an awful watch. But it's a game that the Warriors absolutely had to have. And unfortunately, we've said this a lot in the month plus that I've been doing the show here on KNBR. It's better than the alternative. It's better than the alternative, which would have been losing to a team that had one road win and just had a 28-game losing streak snapped a few days ago or a week ago or however long it was. So 808 KNBR is the number. Appreciate everybody watching the program on YouTube and Twitch as well. Warriors get the win over the Pistons, 113-109 the final. So they improved to 17-18 and a chance to get back to 500 against Toronto. Toronto, the team that the Pistons beat here within the last week. Toronto got beat tonight in Sacramento. Kings actually built a huge lead on them. They came back, made it a close game in the final minutes. But Toronto will be a chase on Sunday. And the rumors are swirling about Pascal Siakam, including reports that the Warriors are a potential dark horse. It had also been reported that the Kings were basically the front runner for about 45 minutes this afternoon. Shams with that report and then quickly pulled it back, and it kind of makes you wonder, maybe he got some bad information, maybe another team stepped in and upped the ante a little bit. It got too rich for the Kings' blood. I think there's some smoke to this Pascal Siakam stuff and him potentially getting moved here in the next couple of days and the Warriors potentially being interested. So Steph brings the Warriors home. Golden State tries to move past the Kuminga stuff with Kuminga playing 36 minutes in this game. Again, really good, complete first half. I still think an impactful second half, even though he didn't score in the second half. And his 36 minutes and the plus 16 helping the Warriors earn a victory that they absolutely had to have. Weird night at Chase. Man, Warrior fans are just on one right now. As far as this, I haven't felt or seen the vitriol in Dub Nation in a long time. The anger that was coming out of a certain portion of the fan base over the last 24 hours with respect to the way the Warriors lost that game to Denver, and more specifically, the Jonathan Kuminga situation with him not playing after the midpoint of the third quarter last night. There was a freaking Moses Moody chant inside Chase. There was a Moses Moody. The fans wanted Moses Moody. And Moses Moody came in the game and didn't exactly fare too well in a couple of minutes of action. But again, neither here nor there. Steve Kerr gave the fans what they wanted tonight. He gave them a whole lot of Kuminga. He gave them a little bit of Moses Moody. Corey Joseph being on the floor drew the ire of Dub Nation, as it always does. Although, as I like to point out, he is the third-string point guard, and Chris Paul did injure his left hand and not return in the second half. So we'll keep you updated on the Chris Paul deal. It didn't look good. And you have to wonder, if Chris Paul could wind up being out for some time, because he immediately went to the locker room, and then shortly thereafter, he was basically ruled out for the night. So as I've always said, and I know, and I think this gets to a bigger picture issue for Warrior fans. It became clear in the last 24 hours. Warrior fans love their championship dynastic heroes. And look, I know this is not everybody. I think it's probably social media. You get people that go to the games versus people who are constantly on social media versus people who call radio shows, and it's all kind of different subsets of a fan base. I think they do all blend together. But there's a portion of Warrior fans, it's like, if it ain't Steph or Klay or Draymond, then it better freaking be Podziemski and Moody and Kuminga and Trace Jackson-Davis. They want no part of the guys that basically aren't one of them in terms of, Dub Nation, like either homegrown or championship players. The Warriors did get a positive contribution from one of the guys who kind of floats between categories, and Dario Saric tonight as well. Saric, positive impact. They needed his 17 points and his 3 of 5 from 3 on a night where the Warriors did hit 16 threes and shot 42%. So at least for a night, although nobody's happy with an ugly win against the Pistons, I will say this, it's better than the alternative, and I'm not in the business of rating wins. So you take it, you appreciate it, and then we can move on to a lot of the other drama and conversation of the day. Before we get to Drew down on the phones, 808 KNBR. 808 KNBR is the number. It's John Dickinson here on the Sports Leader. I do want to let everybody know that we are going to have our first Just Dubs show. So for those who have followed me in my previous life, we had a Saturday show, and we're bringing it over here. We'll be talking a lot of Warriors. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, pour one out. Pour one out on a Friday night. Why not? Pour one out on a Saturday morning, if that's your thing. But, yeah, join us tomorrow, 10 a.m. until noon right here on KNBR, the Sports Leader. Phone calls, text messages. The YouTube will be fired up. Looking forward to getting back to doing some Saturday shows here on the Sports Leader. So look for that beginning tomorrow. It's going to start out as 10 to 12. It may expand here as the season goes on, but it's Just Dubs, and it's right here on the Sports Leader. All right, let's get to the phones. Drew Down and Tracy. What's going on, Drew Down?
Hey, what's going on, JD? Appreciate you taking my call. And, man, everything you're putting down, I'm picking up, man. I think you're hitting the nail on the head as far as a no upside game. If we win, it's like, oh, well, it's the Pistons. But if you lose, it's like, oh, you lost to the worst team in the league. So I think you hit the nail on the head. I tell everybody all the time, man, I don't care who we're playing, man. Shout out Zaza Pachulia, baby. Nothing easy. There's no easy games. If Shawn Michaels is the heartbreak kid, this Warriors team is a heart attack kid. Because every game, if we're winning, coming back from a deficit, big lead, it's just like every single game seems like it just comes down to the wire and makes you want to pull your hair out. So I'd much rather be on the winning side than the losing side. But, again, just another game where, just like I said, make almost gives you a heart attack. I thought the Splash Brothers came alive in the fourth quarter. Steph made big shots. Klay made big shots. They were pretty horrendous in the first half, especially I thought Klay's shot selection in the first half was pretty horrendous, but they made plays in the fourth when it mattered, and I thought they got key contributions from Podziemski, J.K., Saric, TJD. J.K. wasn't spectacular, but I thought he played within the offense, and he wasn't selfish. You know, he was willing to share the ball and not force anything, so it wasn't spectacular, but solid. You know, like you said, and Moody and Kojo, I thought it was a mixed bag. I don't think Moody was very good. I thought actually Corey Joseph was a little bit more effective than Moody, but
yeah,
nice to see him get some minutes. But for everybody clamoring that, you know, he's solid, but you know, let's sort of roll. I mean, I know he's been on the bench for a while, but you know, let's sort of roll. And my last question is, I've been asking is, what does Andrew Wiggins do better than Jonathan Kuminga at this point? There's a lot of talk about trading J.K., and you know, people have a lot of mixed feelings about it. It's polarizing, but Wiggins wasn't very effective today. And my question is, what does Wiggins do, or is more effective at, or give this team more than Jonathan Kuminga does at this point? Thanks, City, for taking my call.
Thanks, Drew Down. It really is a night-to-night basis. And by the way, we do have some breaking news here, and so I'm going to break off, and I'll come back and I'll answer that question. I will get into Corey Joseph and Moses Moody as well, but the Warriors have announced that Chris Paul has a fractured left hand. So Chris Paul, fractured left hand, set to have surgery next week. So yeah, that's a big one. That's a tough one. The Warriors just announced, as you know, Steve Kerr comes into his press conference, Chris Paul, fractured left hand, surgery coming next week. So he's going to be out for a while. And Paul was somebody whose name I think, you know, the Warriors loved having him around, and I think his name was going to start maybe popping up in some deals. I know Steve Kerr loves having him as a stabilizing force and an extra playmaker, but the Warriors are going to be without Chris Paul. So again, I'm sure there's a certain portion of the Warrior fan base that's not all that broken up about it. But I'll tell you, the Warriors and Steve Kerr and their veteran players are broken up about it because they believe that he helps them win games. And so, again, now we'll see what the timeline is going to be as far as that goes. Typically, I think and there are many different types of fractured hands, but typically that's a 6 to 8 week kind of a deal. Like, you know, it's at least 4 to 6 and can be 6 to 8. But again, without details, I don't want to play doctor here on the Sports Leader. So yeah, Chris Paul, breaking news, tough one for him and tough one for the Warriors. And again, if it's anything more than basically 5 weeks, the trade deadline is 5 weeks from yesterday. So if it's in the 6 to 8 week range, then that would mean that any deal that Chris Paul would be involved in at the trade deadline, the team acquiring him would have to agree to basically take on an injured player. And if the Warriors were going down that path, and I'm not saying they were, but if they were going to go down that path of potentially looking to trade Chris Paul, then obviously it would be a scenario where I think the acquiring team would likely be a team that would accept that and then look to buy him out to where he could, when healthy, go sign on with any other team that he would want to. But again, I think the organization's been much happier with what Chris Paul has provided than the fan base has. So that's something to keep an eye on moving forward here. But yeah, bad news on the Chris Paul front as he winds up with a fractured left hand, surgery next week, and just tough news for Chris Paul and for the Warriors. 808 KNBR is the number. 808 KNBR. It's John Dickinson here on the Sports Leader. Warriors win at 113-109 as they improve to 17-18 on the season. And they'll take on Toronto coming up on Sunday. Back to Drew Down's call here. Back to what he was talking about as far as Kuminga and Wiggins specifically. They are viewed differently positionally. I know Wiggins a lot of the time does end up playing the 4, but when Wiggins was a starter, he played the 3. It really is still a case-by-case, night-to-night basis. And the Warriors are at least up until tonight, and the Chris Paul injury changes this, but the Warriors have really enjoyed basically playing Klay Thompson at the 3, which has meant Wiggins and Kuminga have shared 4 minutes with Draymond Green out. And they've played either Podziemski or Chris Paul in the backcourt along with Steph Curry. Basically, 2 of those 3 have been the backcourt for the Warriors. And Klay Thompson's played the 3, and Wiggins has played some backup 3, but he's also played some backup 4 with Kuminga out there. They've put Saric out there some of the time at the 4 when he's with Trace Jackson-Davis. But then if he's not with Trace Jackson-Davis, he's usually at the 5. But positionally, I think they view Wiggins as a 3-4. Wiggins is a better defender than Kuminga, flat out. I mean, so what does he do better? What's that? What, Greg? Open the mic. What do you? If you're disagreeing with me, what do you? If you're being sarcastic, tell me.
No, I'm with you. I think he 100% is, especially off the ball.
Yeah, Wiggins is a better defender than Jonathan Kuminga. Again, I'm going back to Drew Down's call because he had said, well, what is, like, at this point, what does Wiggins do better? And again, it's a case-by-case, night-by-night basis. But I think positionally, the Warriors view them differently. I think they view Wiggins as a 3-4. I think they view Kuminga strictly as a 4, basically, at this point. But yeah, Wiggins is a much better defender, I think, top to bottom, and much better team defender for sure. Where Kuminga gets in trouble defensively is when teams basically make him help all over the floor, and he falls asleep or he overhelped. He really overhelped last night a lot, which led to some layups for the Nuggets. So, again, I think the one thing we learned, and I think Tim Kawakami of The Athletic tweeted this, so I'll give him credit, but it was a thought that I kind of had. It's basically Kuminga or Wiggins on a night-in, night-out basis as far as who's going to finish. Last night, Wiggins. Tonight, Kuminga. It didn't work out for the Warriors last night. I think Steve Kerr, and we will get into what he had to say again as he addressed the decision from last night. You know, it's a scenario where Wiggins being out there at the 7-minute mark, I think, was fine last night. But when it got down to 9-10-point game with 5 minutes to go, they needed Kuminga, and he should have gone back to Kuminga. So I don't have a problem. I know the fan base is in a fury. I don't have a problem with, for now, it being Kuminga or Wiggins. Basically, whoever plays well on a given night gets the run. And as far as Moody, I think it's unfair to put too much on Moses Moody going in for 5 minutes when he basically had been iced for the last 4 games. So I'm not putting anything on Moses Moody. Didn't look great. But here's the reality. And Warrior fans don't like it, but I'm just going to say it. Moses Moody's not a point guard. He's not a point guard. So I understand that nobody wants Corey Joseph to play. And I understand that everybody wants Moses Moody to play. Hell, there was a Moses Moody chant at Chase tonight. But the reality is, with Chris Paul out, they don't view Podziemski as a point guard. They play, if you watch, they play Podziemski with Steph or with Chris. And tonight they even played him with Corey Joseph. So Chris Paul being out is going to mean Corey Joseph is going to play more because he's the third-string point guard. It's not Podziemski, and it sure as hell isn't Moody. But with GP2 out and with Chris Paul now out, I do wonder if it opens up some minutes elsewhere for Moses Moody as things continue to shift around. I don't think it's crazy to think that they can find some minutes for Moses Moody, but he ain't a backup point guard. You know, it's not apples and oranges. All right, 808 KNBR is the number. Warriors get the win 113-109. We will hear from Steve Kerr as the Warriors improve to 17-18. It's John Dickinson here on KNBR 104.5 and 680. It's Dubs OT on the Sports Leader.
Dubs OT with John Dickinson keeps rolling. Streaming live on YouTube at KNBR 1045.
Minute 10, 1-point lead in the ball. Two men jump at Curry. He'll back up on Bogdanovich for three.
That's that handoff stagger. That's what you want. Steph with the ball, the best step back in the league. He got separation, but Bogdanovich was in recovery mode. Had to fight over those screens. You got to give Klay credit for the defense he's been playing.
Up 4. Step back 3. Got it! And he was running back. He knew it was in.
Man, it's big time.
Yeah, Stephen Curry always coming up big. Warriors needed it tonight. Actually fell down in this one on a Bogdanovich 3 as the Warriors were down, but Curry brings them home. Warriors win at 113-109. It's Dubs OT with JD John Dickinson here on The Sports Leader. We'll make sure everybody has the info on Chris Paul. The breaking news here, Chris Paul fractured left hand, surgery coming next week. So tough news there for the Warriors. Two things just right off the top that would concern me as far as the Warriors go, not having Chris Paul. Number one would be the turnover problems return. And you look at the Warriors in this game, they had 19 tonight. And I thought, especially in the first half, problematic. But then the other thing is, and I appreciate New Egghead on Twitter, who replied to the news of the Chris Paul injury, said, watch the bench production now plummet. Chris Paul's been a huge part of leading and tying that bench group together. I know there's a lot of Warrior fans that are frustrated in thinking that maybe Chris Paul's been out there too much with the starters, and he has been in the starting lineup here over the course of these last couple of games, so we'll see where Steve Kerr goes from there. Does Podziemski go back in there? I think probably Podziemski goes back into the starting lineup. But the Warriors are going to have to figure out how they're going to reorder the rotation with Chris Paul out. So I think Podziemski's somebody that goes back in, and then you give Moses Moody some more run, and then when Moses Moody gets more run, you can bring Podziemski back, bring Podziemski back into the game, maybe with Corey Joseph, playing a few spot minutes here and there and kind of divvy up the minutes that way. But yeah, I think those are two things. One, I think the turnovers could be problematic. Two, I worry a little bit as far as how the bench production changes, because the bench has been something consistent, and the Warriors, it really almost, no matter who's been on the floor for the Warriors bench, even if Chris Paul's been a starter, he's still been somebody that's played a lot with the bench group, because he'll get subbed out and then come back in. And so that would be a concern, that an aspect of this Warriors team, which has been pretty dominant, now gets weakened. And how many areas can the Warriors really be weakened right now and be able to absorb it? So opportunities for Moody, I think, opportunities for Podziemski, and probably opportunities for Corey Joseph, obviously, to be able to fill in and get some spot minutes there. 808 KNBR is the number. It's John Dickinson. It's Dubs OT with JD here on The Sports Leader. Also, again, want to let everybody know tomorrow, 10 a.m., tomorrow at 10 a.m., our first Just Dubs show. Rolling this thing out on the first Saturday of 2024, and that's going to be a show that we're going to do every Saturday morning. Looking forward to it. All right, let's get to the YouTube chat. San Jose Jazz fan, right off the top, JD, rate this victory. I don't like rating victories. Ed chiming in right after that, Ed Botello. This one feels kind of weird. It was an awful game. It was an awful, awful game. But a win. So do you feel better about tonight, an ugly ass win against Detroit, than you did with the gut punch loss of all time against Denver? I think you have to, right? Hello there, chiming in. Lakers lost. Warriors are ahead of L.A. That's a fact. The Warriors are back into the play-in tournament tonight. The Lakers did get beat. Warriors went 113-109. Lakers got beat by the Grizzlies tonight down at Crypto.com Arena.
Oh, gnarly.
So they've lost 4 in a row and now are 17-19. So, yeah, the Warriors do at 17-18 move up a peg and are now a half game ahead of the Lakers. So the Warriors are 10th. And the good news for the Warriors is they'd be playing the Rockets, and the Warriors have owned the Rockets. Warriors haven't lost a game to the Rockets in a long time. Like pre-pandemic, I think, was the last time the Warriors lost to the Rockets. So, yeah, I mean, you'd love that matchup if you're the Warriors, right? And then you'd get a shot at New Orleans or Phoenix to try and get the 8 seed. But it's a little early to be talking about that with still 3.5 months to go in the regular season. Hannah M., LMAO, celebrating being the 10 seed. Yeah, no, it wasn't pretty. Win is a win, no doubt about it. Hello there, Chris Paul, broken hand. Does that cancel the trade for Siakam? I think that's a question. You can still do trades with injured players, but the team acquiring the player has to approve it. And again, I wonder if any team acquiring Chris Paul in a potential trade, and we're getting way ahead of ourselves here, but I do think that most teams acquiring Chris Paul would be acquiring Chris Paul to buy him out and basically use his expiring contract as a means to get off of some money. But I do find it interesting, the reporting today, and I think it was Chris Haynes who had the report that the Warriors were a dark horse for Siakam. And then there was report this afternoon that the Kings were the front runners for Siakam, and then from Shams. And then 45 minutes later, it was like, yeah, the Kings are out. So did Toronto say, hey, you got to put Keegan Murray in this thing, or it ain't happening, or whatever? Or did another team potentially jump in? And I think when you look at everything that's gone on here in the last 24 hours with Jonathan Kuminga, the Warriors' number one most tradable young player is Kuminga. And I know there's a lot of fans that don't want to see him go, and he's played some of his best basketball over the course of the last month. But if the Warriors are going to look to try and get some kind of a young prime player in with the other veterans and continue to bridge some of the young versus old gap on this team, Kuminga's going to be the guy, because I don't think any of the other young players have enough value. And Siakam would be the kind of guy that potentially would be a fit for the Warriors. So wait and see on that. I know Indiana is interested in Pascal Siakam. I know Detroit had been rumored to be interested in Pascal Siakam, but really up until today, and just because it was reported that the Kings are out doesn't mean they're actually out. But up until today, it was a lot of Sacramento, Indiana, basically is the two teams that were most discussed as far as what's going on with Pascal Siakam now that Toronto has traded OG Anunoby to New York. Amar Singh, what a crappy win, LOL. This is a 500 team through and through. Yeah, it was not pretty. Not pretty. Yeah, how about the new haircut? I don't rate wins and I don't rate haircuts. But yeah, Jonathan Kuminga did have a new haircut. I thought it was funny. Hello there with the YouTube chat comment of the night. I seriously chuckled right before I saw this, right as we hit the airwaves here on the Sports Leader. Kuminga's new haircut was requested by the Raptors. I thought that was funny. Ed Botello, again, chiming in. You can tell Kerr heard all the noise. He definitely heard all the noise. And I did want to get into that. I think that's a nice segue. And Rebel DeSounds jumping in. Kerr has to play Kuminga and Moody against the young teams. I wholeheartedly agree with that. Like, we can debate whether Kuminga should be playing every game in the regular season. He should be a regular member of the Warriors rotation. I don't think that's really up for debate. The question is, should he be finishing every game? And so I think that's where, you look at it and it's a night-to-night proposition. Tonight, he earned the right to finish. I thought last night he earned the right to finish, especially when things started to go awry. But yeah, Steve Kerr did step to the podium pregame. I want to give everybody an opportunity to hear some of that as well. So yeah, let's go ahead and roll that out. Greg, what's the best way to roll this out as far as the two Steve Kerr cuts? Basically, the first one on Kuminga and the conversation that he had with Kuminga, and as far as the report goes. And so, yeah, no, I'm asking you, because the way this is categorized on the sheet, Greg, it's tough for me. I mean, I'm seeing. Okay, yeah, let's go with F. Yeah, let's go with F. Yeah, that's fine. No, this is the full answer. Yeah, it's lengthy. It's almost 2 minutes, maybe a little bit longer than 2 minutes. But yeah, Steve Kerr asked about Jonathan Kuminga and the report that he's dissatisfied basically with his role on this team. Here's what Steve Kerr had to say pregame.
We talked, obviously those things are better discussed behind the scenes. Anytime something like that goes public, then it creates, a distraction. And I think, it's important for all of our guys. And I talked to our whole team about it. It's like, you got an issue, I'm here. I am the most accessible coach in the league probably. My door's always open, and I have players all the time come talk to me, and I encourage it. And it's a difficult situation because every player naturally has his own goals, his own dreams. Everybody wants to flourish. Everybody wants to blossom. And we have a lot of guys who are capable of playing, and I have very difficult decisions to make each and every night. JK is a young player who's growing. He's getting better. That's why he's been in the starting lineup. He will continue to grow, and this is all part of his growth.
Then you kind of mentioned it was a Wiggins Kuminga choice last night. I know you've talked about trying to find combinations where they work together. Where are you on that? Because I know you've sprinkled some out there, but it's still just. Yeah, I mean we would still like to, but we're obviously every game is tight, and we're trying to win every game, and we want to put ourselves in a great position playoff wise. So it's one of the challenges of this season. Really is we're exploring combinations, but at the same time trying to win, and so we don't have a long time to explore if something's not going well. And at this point, our closing lineups have been different often night after night, and so we haven't been able to kind of find that 1 5-man group that we're just automatically going to go to, and that makes it tricky for the players and tricky for the staff too.
Yeah, it has been. I think without a doubt tricky, but Steve Kerr, again, to the best of his ability in a tough situation for everybody, Jonathan Kuminga included, I did think hit all the right notes. And acknowledging the fact that, hey, if you've got a problem, come in and talk to me about it. Let's not go public. While also explaining, and I did want to hear, and we will play this one for you coming up, just what Steve Kerr had to say specifically again about last night, because he went into greater detail after even watching the film last night as to basically what it came down to. And, Steve Kerr said that he didn't get a lot of sleep last night. I know Steph had said in the post-game press conference that he watched the final 6 minutes before he went into the press conference even, basically right as the game ended. And then Steve said he did similar last night, just watched it back, what went wrong, what could have been done differently, all of those things, and he gave his blunt explanation as to what it came down to as far as Kuminga not getting back on the floor with the lead evaporating and with Kuminga being one of the more productive Warriors players last night. So, but as far as, the combinations and, he really laid out just the fact that it's not just about this player or that player. It's about other groups. And I think that's where the Warriors find themselves hamstrung so often, is that they have certain 2 or 3 player groupings that play well together, but those 2 or 3 players don't always mesh with the other 2 or 3 players that need to be on the court. It's not as simple as just play the best 5. Sometimes it's you got to play these 2 and those 3. And, I give Steve Kerr credit. I said this last night for trying to find opportunities to get Kuminga and Wiggins out there together. The Warriors did tonight actually push the lead up in a stretch where I thought it was the best stretch that those 2 had played together on the floor. But again, I think you can get away with it against a team like Detroit that's heavy-duty athletes and not a lot of skill and for the most part, not a lot of shooting. You can get away with Kuminga and Wiggins against teams that can't shoot very well. Well, in the NBA in 2024, there just aren't very many teams that even fit that category. But Detroit is one, so I'm not surprised that playing the 2 together worked as effectively as it did tonight. But I give Steve Kerr credit for, when kind of being called out on it since the Christmas game, looking for opportunities, and it was an unmitigated disaster the first time he did it against Miami, but he stuck with it. And I think he's tried to find other combinations that need to be out there. He put him out there with Steph and Klay tonight. And it's, all right, we're going to play those 2. We got to play those 2 with 2 of the greatest shooters of all time on the floor together. So, I mean, that's I think what it boils down to there. And I think tonight, again, it shows that it basically has to be Kuminga or Wiggins moving forward. All right, before we hear that other Steve Kerr cut, back to the YouTube chat. Rebel to Sounds. Kerr gave Wiggins the opportunity to finish against the Nuggets, and he did nothing. He did. He was playing well, and this gets back to the cut that I wanted to play. Wiggins was playing well with the group that was on the floor that pushed the lead to 18. In fact, Wiggins had the bucket that put the Warriors up 18 at 123-105 before all hell broke loose and they got outscored 25-4. The problem wasn't, and Steve Kerr explained this last night, the problem wasn't not going back to Kuminga at the 7-minute mark. The problem was not going back to Kuminga once the lead started to slip away. And it got to 9 with about 5 minutes left, and Wiggins really Wiggins was playing well, and then it was like, you know what, this team needs some offense. It's getting a little janky. Kuminga's been able to put rim pressure on the basket. The Nuggets had showed an inability really to defend him well. Put him out there. So anyway, Steve Kerr addressed this again. It came up in a thorough and lengthy pregame media availability session. This is cut D, Greg, on the decision to go with Kuminga.
He was playing great, but we had another group that came in playing great. So I think when J.K. went out, we were down 1, and then we finished the quarter strongly, so we stayed with the same group. Actually, no, I think we made a couple subs to start the fourth, but we went on a quick run and got up to 18, and Wiggs was playing really well. He had a couple buckets, but he was guarding Murray. And to be perfectly frank, it came down to a decision of just sticking with Wiggs because I thought he was doing a good job. At the end of the game, I look at the box score and I'm like, J.K. only played 18 minutes. Like that's I got to get him out there for longer. But these are really difficult decisions because it's not just as simple as how many minutes a guy plays. It's who's playing and what's the combination, what's happening in the game. There's only 5 spots, and we have, I've said this over and over again, we have a lot of people who are very capable of being out there, but the way the game was flowing, I decided to stay with the group that was there.
And I think that's where the error was. The initial keep Wiggins out there fine, but they needed a change. And the part that really bothered me, and it bothered me even more today, was the notion that, Kerr basically went to everybody else that had been playing. He went to Saric. He went to Trace Jackson-Davis. He went to Looney. Wiggins had been out there. Podziemski was in. Podziemski was out. Chris Paul was in. Steph and Klay. Everybody that had played last night got an opportunity once things, in the final 7 minutes. And then Kuminga didn't. And so that was, again, while I understand the defensive component, and that's not nothing. The fact that Wiggins was guarding Jamal Murray, and you need somebody that's going to guard Jamal Murray. And Steph and Klay are going to be out there, and you need a big, whether it's Looney or TJD, to handle Jokic the best you can. Nobody, obviously, as he proved last night and has proven for the last 2 years, nobody can handle Jokic, but you got to have a big out there to try. Draymond has in the past. So that's 4 right there. If you're going to play at Steph, Klay, it's a center. That's actually 3. And then they wanted to have Chris Paul or Podziemski because they're basically playing Klay at the 3 exclusively, offensively. He's guarding some 3s and some 4s, and he's guarding multi-positions. But so then it comes down to Wiggins or Kuminga, and Wiggins is somebody that you trust more on Murray. But Wiggins is just so hit or miss offensively. Like, there are a lot of nights where Kuminga's just a better offensive player right now. That's just reality because he can get to the bucket or get fouled or whatever. But you don't always get the other things. So it's complicated. But I do give Steve Kerr credit for explaining it again. Look, he stopped short of saying I screwed up, which is what he said when he didn't play Moses Moody against the Kings in Sacramento back in November. But all he can really do is explain the thought process, and then we can all debate it. And he did give Kuminga 36 minutes tonight. So, yes, as a few people had said in the YouTube chat, Steve Kerr heard the noise. He heard the noise. But, again, this is a matchup where I think you can just let Kuminga play a lot and not worry about it. And he had an excellent first half. He had a second half. But, again, his second half didn't kill him. And he was still out there when a lot of good things were happening. So 808 KNBR is the number. It's John Dickinson. It's Dubs OT with JD. We'll come back with Sounds of Silver. Get a couple of cuts off of this game. We will have fun with numbers as well. And we'll get you closer to 11 o'clock before we set up Just Dubs. Again, the debut. Done a couple of podcasts, but the first Just Dubs live show tomorrow, 10 until noon right here on KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.
Klay Thompson! We're back with more Blue and Gold. This is Dubs OT with John Dickinson on the Sports Leader. Streaming live at KNBR.com and on the KNBR app.
Did you hear something?
Yeah, like a swoosh.
Yeah.
Dubs OT presents the sounds of silver. Streaming live on YouTube at KNBR 1045.
Right now, 1 for 12 are the Warriors and the Pistons from 3. That will be an offensive foul. And what do you think is at the bottom of the pile?
Podziemski got him again.
God, what is the rookie record for charges drawn?
First of all, he sprints back. I talked about transition defense. With all these athletes, you got to sprint back. And he sprinted back so well, he was just sitting there waiting for what seemed like a few seconds.
Yeah, Brandon Podziemski loves taking charges. What was it? Did you say 16 or 17? 16. 16th charge for Brandon Podziemski. He's among the league leaders in charges taken. He's among the NBA leaders in charges taken, not just rookie leaders. And yeah, we can get into rookie records and all of that. But that's a hell of a defensive skill to be able to get in there and time it out right and be in the right position. And Podziemski's been excellent at it. And so that, I think, is among the many reasons why he's earned himself some more playing time here over the last month. And for the most part, it's been a real boon and real positive for the Golden State Warriors. Welcome you back here. It's Dubs OT with JD here on the Sports Leader. 808 KNBR is the number. Warriors win 113-109. Stephen Curry carries the Dubs to the finish line. Klay Thompson pitched in 19. Dario Saric, 17 off the bench, and the Warriors needed all of them to earn this victory. Jonathan Kuminga, 11 in the first half, and another real solid overall game for Brandon Podziemski, 11, 5, and 5. He always gets 5 boards, it feels like, and takes a charge and keeps the ball moving. And I think Brandon Podziemski is going to be somebody who's going to likely be inserted back into the starting lineup with the breaking news here. Unfortunate news with Chris Paul, the broken hand. And so CP3 is going to be out for some time. Surgery next week, fractured left hand. The Warriors making that announcement tonight. All right, Sounds of Silver. What do we got? We bring in the great Greg Silver here on the Sports Leader. What do we got tonight, Greg?
What's up, Dub Nation and Bay Area fans? And JD, of course. We're going to start with Steve Kerr, as we customarily do, because he was made aware of the Chris Paul injury, of course, right after the game, coming up to the podium and was asked about it, reported about it. He said that it might open the door for somebody in particular, somebody that got quite the standing ovation for checking into the game with 9:55 to go in the fourth. That's Moses Moody. The rotation and how it changes is, of course, to be determined. But here's what Steve Kerr had to say on the Chris Paul injury and how that might impact Moses Moody.
Both Brandon and Corey will play more at the point, and probably brings Moses also back into the rotation because you're replacing 30 minutes from Chris. So we won't replace all those minutes with one guy. We'll probably spread them out. But I'm excited to get Moses back out there. I thought he was great tonight. He brought a lot of energy. Great to hear the fans chanting his name. You know, he's a fan favorite for a reason. He plays hard, and being out of the loop the last few games has been tough on him, but he always stays ready. So I'm excited to get him back in there.
Yeah, now Moses Moody has a couple of days to know that he's going to be out there, which I think is a good thing. I'm not holding any uneven play from Moses Moody against him tonight after not being out there the last couple of days, and somebody in his camp leaking to Jason Dumas-Akron that he's unhappy with his role. So he's unhappy. Kuminga's unhappy. A lot of young players unhappy right now for the Warriors. But, how will the Warriors divvy up the minutes? You're going to see Corey Joseph. It doesn't mean you're going to see Corey Joseph for 30, but I would imagine among the 30, it's probably going to be, I don't know. I mean, and Greg, you can jump in on this. Among the 30, I would say Moody probably gets 15 to 20. On the 20 end, if he's playing well, I would say Corey Joseph is going to probably get at least 10 to 12. And then at that point, Podziemski would get maybe an extra 5 or so, 5 to 10, depending on the night. I know that's more than 30 that I just laid out. But I could see it being, I think, look for Corey Joseph to play a 5-6 minute shift in each half, at least as part of the rotational plan. So that's like 12 minutes right there. Moody probably gets at least 15, and then the Warriors are going to have to, go from there. Maybe Joseph's stints are a little bit shorter if you organize it. I think Podziemski goes into the starting lineup. I think Moody ends up being somebody that subs for Podziemski. I think Corey Joseph gets some minutes, maybe with Podziemski, and then at that point, Steph's probably ready to come back into the game around the 8-minute mark of the second and fourth quarters after he subs out. So, good opportunity for Moody. Joseph has to play unless the Warriors just turn the keys over to Podziemski and say, hey, you're the backup point guard, which is something they've been unwilling to do to this point, Greg.
I think we do see Corey Joseph for at least 10 minutes, maybe not more than 12 or 13, but I think we're going to see him for a solid 10 minutes on average. And that's not because of anything that I think in particular or what the Warriors should do, but just kind of knowing how Steve Kerr and the coaching staff has always gone about their rotations. Corey Joseph tonight was 1 for 2 shooting, 2 assists, no turnovers, +3. Nothing overwhelming, but just kind of a steady force out there. And I think if Corey Joseph can be a veteran ball handler and not make big mistakes, that's going to be enough reason to give him 5-minute shifts in each half, like you were saying.
Yeah, I just think they're going to need that at least initially to be part of the plan, because now, I mean, he really was, and somebody in the YouTube chat had said, he really is, people get inflamed about it, but he really is, role on the team is basically the third point. He's only going to play in an emergency. Well, Chris Paul being out becomes an instant emergency. So, I think he will be out there a little bit. But I wonder if they lean into Podziemski potentially being more of the backup point guard. I kind of don't think they will. But they tried him out when Chris Paul missed time in the preseason.
And it was interesting to hear Steve Kerr say it in the postgame presser, because we talked when Chris Paul originally went to the locker room and we had no prognosis of his injury that we don't really see Brandon Podziemski getting treated like the point guard role in this offense.
He's always out there with Steph or with Chris. And tonight he was even out there with Corey.
Yeah, but based on Steve Kerr's comments, I'm thinking maybe they will be willing to give it a shot and try it. Yeah.
No, and look, I think he's played well enough in the other role to where you couldn't. I don't think you could go wrong if you did it letting him get. Like, I'd feel more comfortable with that than some of the other things maybe that would be potentially options. What else we got, Greg?
We're going to hear everybody's favorite subject that nobody can get enough of. Steve Kerr was asked about Jonathan Kuminga and how he did tonight. So let's lead right into that one with Steve Kerr's thoughts on Agent Zero.
Steve, JK was obviously frustrated with the way last night went. Responded tonight. He was +16, gave you some solid minutes. How did you think he handled what happened last night and rebounded in this game?
I thought he played well tonight, and he's a young guy and he wants to play, and I just told him everybody wants to play, and we've got a lot of guys who can play. So every night's going to be a little different. I think last night Wiggs finished the game. Tonight JK did, and I thought he did a really good job. He moved the ball well. He guarded both Cunningham and Bogdanovich, and he played a good, solid game.
Yeah, good, solid game for Jonathan Kuminga, but also, Greg, the point being made that it continues to be a night-to-night proposition as far as who the minutes are going to go to. So while I think Steve Kerr was pretty diplomatic, and I know Jonathan Kuminga did speak. Do we have any Kuminga sound, or was that locker room? Okay, no worries. Kendra Andrews of ESPN putting it out via social media. Kuminga said he appreciates the conversation with Kerr today, says they didn't talk much about minutes, but more about the importance of communication to get a better understanding of expectations and more trust from both sides. So I think that's good. Kendra likely in the locker room if Kuminga didn't go up to the podium. So obviously on a day like today, Kuminga is going to be somebody that, whether it's in the locker room or at the podium, is going to be having to speak to everything that's gone on over the last 24 hours. So really, to me, that's the more important part. It's not about minutes, and because that part, as much as a lot of Warrior fans are again inflamed about it, that part isn't changing. The night to night, maybe it's Kuminga, maybe it's not. Now, Kuminga can play every night and should play every night, and we've gone over and over about that. To me, the thing that needed to be fixed was quit having your agent leak that you're pissed off when you're pissed off. Like, that's the part, Greg, that and look, I give Kuminga some leeway because I agree that he should have been out there last night. I don't necessarily think he should have been out there every night like a lot of people do. But so I'm willing to give him a mulligan on that one. I was more perturbed by the Christmas game. To me, he should not have said anything. Like, there should have been no, I'm dissatisfied after that game. If you wanted to say it after last night's game, I didn't really have a problem with it. But the reality is him and Coach Kerr need to get on the same page. They need to get on the same page if Kuminga's going to continue to be on this roster, frankly.
There's no question about it, JD. I don't think they make it through a full season with all the drama they've had and what a tumultuous situation Draymond alone has created. And now you got Jonathan Kuminga being dissatisfied. Moses Moody, it's now leaked that he's dissatisfied, and he's kind of the one you think of as the adult in the room. And you're right that Kuminga is totally valid in wanting to say what he said last night. He did play better than Wiggins. I think he absolutely should have played in the fourth quarter. And yes, when the lead got down to single digits, I think we're all on the same page that Kuminga deserved to be out there. Tonight he was solid. I think he's picked interesting times before to complain, but of course the people that are going to be on Kuminga's side no matter what, very validated last night. And yeah, I mean, I want to see him continue to play, but it's not going to work if it is inconsistent all around. The team plays too inconsistent to have this inconsistent give and take relationship between him and Steve Kerr.
Couple of just quick thoughts from the YouTube chat. Uncle Looney and Drew Down, couple of favorites going at it a little bit. Uncle Looney seemed like he was thinking a little bit about making the right play, talking about Kuminga, and then Drew Down played unselfish tonight. Look, it's a fine line because I think the thing that Kuminga has done significantly better lately is be more decisive, whether it's making a pass or looking to attack. And he's not pulling up from 10 feet trying to shoot a jumper. He's getting all the way to the rack and getting fouled or laying it up or dunking it or trying to dunk it. He had one block tonight, I think, where it looked like he maybe got fouled. But to me, he's more decisive. Problematic before the last 15 games or so, to me, with Kuminga was that you really could see he was thinking and he was slow to drive or to make. It's like, do I want to shoot this three? There was that half second. Do I want to shoot this three? Do I want to drive? Do I want to make a pass? Like, he was clearly trying to think about doing the right thing, and you could see it in his game. That you're already sunk if it's what is going on there. And so, yeah, I think it's interesting. I think he's gotten a lot better at it. Another one? We got another one here on Sounds of Silver?
Yeah, I want to hear something from Klay Thompson because what he said, substance-wise, was interesting to me, but Klay sounded pretty upbeat for a post-game presser. I mean, usually you kind of get the Klay. It's like,
well, they won.
We won, and I'm proud of Steph. He makes big shots time and time again, and we're lucky to have him.
Wasn't it 3 days ago that we were talking about, all right, Klay had his conversation with Steve. Everybody's got to have a freaking conversation with Steve Kerr to get their mind right now.
I think Klay and Steve Kerr are in a much better place.
Klay better be good.
Yeah, so but Klay Thompson was happy. Whatever Steve Kerr did to him seemed to work, so maybe Jonathan Kuminga needs some of that medicine, but Klay Thompson was talking about his defense down the stretch, and actually that was I'll skip that one, and I want to go to one where he talks about getting a little too comfortable with leads in the last couple of games, which, yeah, it's very obvious, Klay, but I just like hearing Klay being a little upbeat after a 4-point win. I don't care if it was the Pistons. This is Klay Thompson.
It's a 48-minute battle. I think the last 2 games we got comfortable being up double digits with 6-7 minutes left rather than being as aggressive as we were throughout. So come Sunday, we want to win these next 2 on the homestand. That would be a really nice way to end it. We got to just play as hard as we did in those first 35 minutes, and I know we will. Luckily for us, what was this, the 35th game of the season? Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of basketball left, and we're still gelling together, and we're still building chemistry, and I have, full belief in this team to do great things.
Well, that's good. I know Steph talked about needing to have the full belief last night that this team could still do big things while also understanding the realization that where they are is where they are. And that ain't great and needs to improve. And so, look, there's a fine line in a number of different ways as it relates to that. 808 KNBR is the number. Good stuff. Sounds of Silver here on the Sports Leader, the great Greg Silver. And again, letting everybody know, join us tomorrow at 10 a.m. right here on the Sports Leader. JD and Greg Silver, it's Just Dubs, an extension of our Just Dubs podcast. The live show is back. Again, for those of you that have followed me in my prior life, the Saturday show for a long time, talking NBA and Warriors basketball, and we're getting that back together tomorrow from 10 until noon. We may extend it as the season continues to roll on, but I'm really happy to be back and on the airwaves on Saturday mornings and talking Warriors and talking NBA. From the land of Hella, put that one back up on the screen. I like that one. 35 games and still, quote, building chemistry is hard to hear. I had the exact same thought when Klay said that. 35 games and building chemistry. It just that like, I love the energy and everything else, but yikes. 35. I mean, it's this team shouldn't still, but you can see that they are because the combinations are different every single freaking night right now. All right, more in the YouTube chat. Ed Botello, don't trade JK. Karadvo. It'll be funny on Sunday, JK and Siakam switch jerseys before the game. Yeah, that happens in baseball. Doesn't happen as much in the NBA because there's like a 5-day get your house in order rule. All players involved have to pass their physicals, etc. San Jose Jazz fan on a gutless scale of JD. JD 0 got 2. Ray Ratto, huge cut. Where would you rate this victory? I don't rate victories. Tony Smith, just trade JK and Moody. So people are going back and forth about that one. Spencer, just pathetic. How do you have a game that close with the Pistons? Well, the Pistons are a little better than their record. What's the Pistons' record now? 3-32. Yikes. 3-32. But as Douglas Mikes points out, Warriors get the win on Sunday. They're right back to 500, and optimism rains down again as they'll get a couple of days off before taking on the Pelicans. I tell you what, if the Warriors end up winning the next 3 and they're +1, I think you'll take that. But I think it would also go down as not taking advantage of basically a 2-month stretch of nothing but home games for the most part. I mean, we laid this out. You go back to right after Thanksgiving and basically the stretch that began with the Dubs OT era here on the Sports Leader. I mean, the Warriors, a lot of home games, and the farthest east that they had to go was Phoenix, except for one game in Oklahoma City that was a one-off based on the in-season tournament rankings and all of that. So they've had pretty much a 2-month stretch that's going to end here next week where they've had very little travel, a ton of home games, and I think even you'll feel better considering everything that's happened in the last week if they win the next 3 and they get to 1 over 500. Or win the next 2, I guess now. It would be 3 in a row. I guess there's only 2. All these days running together, I gave them an extra one. If they're 19 and 18 Wednesday night, you feel better about it, but at the same time, again, I think you would have hoped that they would have been multiple games over, and all the blown leads are the reason to blame. All right, let's have some fun with numbers here before we close. You want a break? You want a break first? All right, we'll take a quick one. We'll come back. We'll get to fun with numbers. We'll close out the YouTube chat. Could sneak in a call, 808 KNBR if you want. Maybe you're leaving Chase. You went and had one. It's Dubs OT with JD here on 104.5 and 680, the Sports Leader.
This is Dubs OT with JD. Time now for fun.
I'm a fun guy.
With numbers.
No, I'm just having fun.
On KNBR 104.5 and 680. Streaming live on KNBR.com and the KNBR app.
And Kuminga filled the lane perfectly. Klay was hung up in the air with nowhere to go. And JK, what a great read.
That's how you use your athleticism. Kuminga's been doing that so well, more and more. Everybody focused on Klay. Might as well cut in there.
Yeah, Jonathan Kuminga is playing well. 2 of his 11 in the first half. Real active and impressive first half for Kuminga, doing it all. Ends up, though, a game high, plus 16. 0 for 2 in the second half, but Kuminga ends up with 11 and 6. He did have 4 turnovers. Turnovers could be a little bit of a problem for JK. It's Dubs OT with JD here on the Sports Leader. Final couple of minutes. Let's get to fun with numbers. What do you say? Fun with numbers. And, the Warriors getting the job done tonight. Hey, they swept the Pistons. Beat them. And the reason that, why is that noteworthy? Well, because they got swept by the Pistons last year. That's right. Lost both games, including, how about this? Back-to-back January 4ths. They had a buzzer beater walk-off L. It was Saddiq Bey, who the Warriors traded for a minute, and then ended up in the deal that got him Gary Payton II back and James Wiseman going the other way. Saddiq Bey with the 3 last January 4, and then Jokic with the 3 last night. But the Warriors do sweep the Pistons and have won 6 of the last 8 meetings. So they got swept last year, but they've now swept them in 3 of the last 4 years. Warriors 2-3 in the 7-game homestand. Still not where you want to be. I think you're hoping 4-1 at this point with a couple of games to go. And last night, obviously, last night in the Miami game, or the 2 really that stand out. The Miami game needed to be a win, and last night you had it right there at 18. If the Dallas game had been the 1 loss out of 5, we'd be having a completely different conversation. Warriors bench, again, did the job. 45-37 Dubs off the bench. That's 28 now out of 35 games that the Warriors have outscored the opponent's bench. And it was a clutch game. It didn't look like it was going to be a clutch game, but it ended up being a clutch game. 28 out of 35. So the Warriors, 28 of their 35. 80% of the Warriors' games this season have been clutch games, and the Warriors have won 50% of those. I feel like tonight was a backdoor clutch game, but they were trailing with a couple of minutes. They were trailing with a couple of minutes left before Steph took it over. So 14-14 now in the clutch games. Stephen Curry, team high 26. He's had 25 in each of the last 4 games. He's averaging 29.3 over those games. And he's made at least 4 3-pointers in all of those games. He had 4 tonight. And it was 8 of 9 at the free throw line as well for Steph. Klay had 19, Kuminga 11, so he extended it. It looked like Kuminga was going to go for 25. But he did extend his double-figure scoring streak to 15. He's averaged 15 over the last 15. So going all the way back to about a month ago, Brandon Podziemski, 11, 5, and 5. 8th time Podziemski's had double digits points, at least 5 boards and 5 assists. 8th time. Which leads all rookies. Trace Jackson-Davis, nice game for him off the bench. And he wound up getting closer minutes tonight. 11 and 9. And the Warriors are doing a nice job of finding him in the dunker spot. 11 and 9 on 5 of 5 shooting for Trace Jackson-Davis. The epitome of efficiency. And Dario Saric, probably the greatest unsung hero of the night for the Warriors. 17 points. Last 2 games, he had 16. I'm sorry, I had 13. So he's averaging 15 of the last 2. And knocking down the 3 ball. The rough news of the night for the Warriors, Chris Paul, leaves the game at the 5:39 mark in quarter number 3 with the broken left hand, fractured left hand. Chris Paul to have surgery next week. No timetable right now, although I'm not even going to speculate on the timetable, but it's not good. So more opportunities for Moses Moody and Brandon Podziemski and Corey Joseph. All right, final couple of minutes here. Dubs OT with JD here on the Sports Leader. Do want to get a couple more on the YouTube chat. Caradvo, Wiggins playing bad because he doesn't want to be traded. A little back and forth between Rebel and San Jose Jazz fan. Kerr gave Wiggins Kuminga's minutes to close out the Nuggets game, and he did diddly squat. Not exactly true. He was playing pretty well. Helped them push the lead out. And then the retort was Kuminga got Wiggins minutes tonight and did diddly squat. But the Warriors did win tonight, and Kuminga did deserve to finish the ball game tonight. Regulator, Siakam is a 4. How would that work? Well, I think, and we have spent a decent portion of the show tonight talking about the Toronto Raptors, who are the Warriors' next opponent, and seemingly eager to trade Pascal Siakam. Siakam's a 4 and a small ball 5. I know Warrior fans are going to love that. But no, you'd be playing Siakam and Draymond together at the 4 and the 5. You'd be right now playing Looney and Siakam together, or Trace Jackson-Davis and Siakam together. The problem with the Siakam deal for the Warriors is Kuminga would probably be in it because he would need to be as a talented piece that Toronto may covet. The problem is, for money purposes, it would almost it would have to basically be Chris Paul or Wiggins. And if it's Wiggins, then if it's Wiggins and Kuminga, you don't have a 3. You basically don't have a trustable 3 on your roster. So to me, you'd almost have to make it a bigger deal and figure out a way to get a 3 back if Wiggins is going to be going out in that deal. But Siakam is a 4 and a small ball 5. So I do think you could play Siakam and Draymond together for sure. I do think you could play Siakam and Saric together. I think you could play Siakam and Trace Jackson-Davis together. I also wonder, given the decline in Looney's production, if Looney may be somebody that the Warriors would be willing to part with. Because he's somebody that, when you start looking at potential financial relief, he would be a player that I think winning teams would want. So maybe he ends up in a different position, different team. But I wonder if Looney ends up maybe being somebody, because part of the moves that the Warriors look to make, if they look to make moves, are going to be getting their financial house in order. They're going to be determining whether or not they still believe they can be a championship contender. And if they don't believe that they can be a championship contender, I think they're going to wind up having to make sure they get under that second apron as far as the luxury tax goes and all of that. So, again, it's Siakam, I do think, fits in a lot of ways, but it depends on who else is going out as well, as far as how it all would shake out and who's going to play what minutes. All right, good stuff tonight. We'll call it a night on that note. Appreciate everybody chiming in on YouTube. Appreciate the phone calls. Appreciate the Golden State Lumber and Building Materials text line. Great stuff by everybody. And here's the thing. It's going to be a quick turnaround here on the Sports Leader. 10 o'clock tomorrow. Join us for our first live edition of Just Dubs. It's going to be a weekly Saturday show talking Warriors basketball here on the Sports Leader. Big time stuff. Big time stuff. Looking forward to it. Appreciate everybody again in the YouTube chat as this thing continues to grow. So, yeah, but join us tomorrow at 10 a.m., 10 until noon. YouTube chat will be fired up. Phone lines will be fired up. And looking forward to talking some Warriors basketball with you. Also, we're going to be back Sunday night right here on the Sports Leader following the Dubs and the Raptors. We'll see who's playing for who at that point. Is there a trade between those two teams to be made over the course of the next 48 hours? All right, for Greg Silver, for the great Raf Corral, anybody else helping out tonight, or was it just you and Raf, Greg? I couldn't hear you. Hop on the air.
Just us tonight.
All right, just Raf and just the great Greg Silver. Greg's going to join me tomorrow for Just Dubs at 10 o'clock. So we'll talk to you tomorrow. We'll talk to you Sunday. It's John Dickinson, KNBR 104.5 and 680, the Sports Leader.
That's just like making a game winner.
Steph was amazing, but Steph is always amazing.
Dario with 17 off the bench.
Pocket three. Curry three. Oh my goodness.
Curry, off the backboard. And Trace Jackson Davis.
Some days I think about like homework in school, but then, I got to look and I don't have it.
Playoffs? You kidding me? Playoffs?